So at this point, I'm digging the drums. I like the sound of the bass line. It's not even any additional effects or anything. It's all just Mariana. And I'd like to add a layer that's going to sit on top of the bass that could be a nice, maybe more of a sustaining kind of texture, sort of a drone. Not necessarily for a chord progression, because again, it's not a synth where I can play 3 or 4 or 5 notes at a time. But maybe I can play around with the duophonic mode and get some intervals going. I don't know, but we're going to add something cool on top of what's already here. On this track, I have another instance of Mariana that I have not used yet. So let's go ahead and expand this bad boy and see what we can do. Now, before I make this much bigger, I do want to point something out. One thing that I haven't done is taken advantage of any cool MPE related stuff with Mariana. And I definitely can. In fact, just to make this clear, let's do this. And let's do this. If I click on the modulation sources area, oh, I have to click on the knob first. Let's say I click detune. Okay. I mentioned before that there's things here, the global modulation sources that are in green. These are going to be things, they're expression controls. They're things that are probably related to how you play your controller. One of the things that we have here is MPE third dimension. And generally, this is going to be related to you moving your finger, let's say like up and down the pad or up and down the key, depending on what sort of MPE controller that you're using. This is only going to work for me in Ableton Live if I actually enable the MPE mode for the plugin, and this may not be immediately obvious to all of you. So let me just make this clear before we continue. In fact, let's do this. Let me show you what this means when it's not enabled and what it means when we do enable it. The system bass patch is still here. Okay, I'm sliding my finger across different pads, playing different notes, and we notice that the pitch doesn't smoothly glide up and down. It basically jumps from one note to the next. I'm going to right click on the Mariana plugin down here in Ableton Live's device view. And when I do this, there's an option at the very bottom here that says enable MPE mode. And I just want to make sure that this is actually enabled. Once I do that, now it says MPE. Let me do the same thing I did before and let's see if there's a difference. So now I can slide my finger left and right, and instead of it re-triggering every single note when I move to a new pad, it simply slides. This also means I can take advantage of that additional MPE source. For example, let's just say, I know this is a preset, but I just want to make it clear. Here's the third dimension. All right, right now, I can push in for pressure, but if I move my finger up and down, it does nothing. Let me assign this to the third dimension here. And so now as I move my finger up and down the pad, that is the MPE third dimension. So very cool. And this can be very useful for what I want to do. So let's go ahead and unassign that. Let's hide this. And let's look at a few other things we can play with to flesh out this little tune in progress. Go back to the initial preset. I should also point out too, when you look here, you can take the parameters from synth 1 and copy it to synth 2 and vice versa. You can swap the state of both synths, which can be really useful depending on what you're going for. I don't know that I'm going to need to do that, but I figured I should point that out before I end up leaving this wonderful device. So MPE is enabled. I want to make a brighter sound. I want to take advantage of both synth layers. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn, I won't turn on synth 2 yet. Let me turn up Oscillator 2. I want to spread these. And keep in mind with this accent on for the voicing, the accent will make it so that the decay of the amplitude and filter envelope is much more quick. The decay and the release, I believe. This can be really useful for the drum sounds. I don't know that I need to use this right now, but I figured I would just point it out since it's under my mouse. So one thing I think I'd like to do here is take advantage of some oscillator sync by enabling hard sync. All right. When I enable hard sync, Oscillator 2 is going to be synced to the beginning of the phase of Oscillator 1's waveform. which will create some very interesting tones and changes in timbre when I detune Oscillator 2. It's not going to really detune it, but it's just going to give us some higher harmonics and just a different kind of tone. So let me enable hard sync. And as I detune Oscillator 2, you'll notice the pitch doesn't really change, but the timbre does. And this is a lot more noticeable if I turn down Oscillator 1. Or if I play with the duty cycle in phase. So now we really get that oscillator sync sound, and that can be a lot of fun to blend with Oscillator 1, which is not affected by any of that. So I think these all would be great things to modulate, to get more movement from my sound just from Synth 1, all right? Spread this a little bit. Okay. So let's start modulating some stuff. I already know what I need to do to target some of these things, and I'll change the values later, but let me just go ahead and right click on duty cycle, and let's get an LFO to modulate that. Turn that on, make it bipolar. It's too fast, I know, but we'll address that in a second. I also want to play with, let's see, the detuning here. So let's right click on that, and I'd like to use a different LFO to modulate that. Again, way too fast. We'll deal with that in a bit. And then the phase. Let's have another LFO modulate that. All right. But wait, nope, sorry, that's the wrong thing. See, I'm targeting this still. Let me make sure I target the right parameter. This should be LFO 2. Enable it. Bipolar. Bam. Okay. Now I can go to the control page and slow all this stuff down. Nice. I like it. Okay. Now the beauty of this is that this is just the one synth. And I can layer this with the second synth and still play with effects. I'm not even really using the filters here at all. I think it might be a good idea to make sure I don't generate too much bass here. I'm still using the serial filter configuration. There we go. I just want to make sure that there's room on the bottom for the bass. But I don't mind all the stuff on the top. Don't need the sub oscillator here. This is kind of cool. Let me go to the output. Let's unmute synth 2. Okay. And I want to focus now on synth 2 and how that can complement synth 1. Let me turn them both on though, really quickly. And if we go to synth 2, actually, let me point this out before we go much further. Synth 2 just sounds like the initial preset. Synth 1 has all my fancy changes. What if I want to use the duophonic mode at this point? Let's go here and let's choose duophonic. When I enable this, you can see the default mode is to alternate. So every time I play a note, that's kind of cool, right? Now, this also means that I could play two notes at the same time. And since MPE is enabled, I can also slide to bend the pitch of only one of those notes, which is pretty cool. And I think that's I think that's probably where I'm going to go. I wasn't going to do that initially, but I think that'll be a lot cooler. And then you can also see here, you can determine which synth should play first or should be priority. So here, first synth will always have priority, and then the second synth will play if I'm basically using the first voice. Right? No notes overlapped. I didn't need to play the second synth because I was only using the first voice. If I hold a note and then play another note, all right, it'll always make the second voice played by the second synth. So anyway, with all this established, I think this gives us some cool things to play with. Let me go back to, close that. Go to Synth 2. I don't want to do anything too complicated here, quite honestly. I think what I really want to do is focus more on the effects, and then we'll add this and it'll be pretty dope. So we'll spread this more. Turn up Oscillator 2. Let's go for a different waveform. Oh, I love it. It's great. Now here we're not even using hard sync, but playing with the duty cycle. We're basically playing with the width of the pulse. How long is this going to be high? How long will it be low? And that gives us a nice change in the timbre and the overall feel. And I think it'll be great for adding some more movement to this sound. All right. I don't want this to be a busy melody. Ooh, you know, it'd be nice. I just spent all that time talking about MPE. Let's get some MPE going on here. I'm going to map the duty cycle to the MPE third dimension. So as I move my finger up and down, okay, that's a little weird. Maybe that's not going to work the way I want. Okay, no, let's do pressure instead, because this is acting kind of weird with that. Pressure, here we go. Enable. Okay, that's more what I would expect. Okay, so with these two layers here, I think this is actually pretty interesting. I don't need to go too crazy with filtering and whatnot. But what I would like to do now is go to my output area, and I want to play around with some effects here. All right. We've heard a little bit of the delay. We talked about the saturation, and I've done primarily all of this with Synth 1. We also have another saturator for Synth 2. We have chorus over here as well. And this can all be quite helpful to make these sounds that much more full and fat. All right. And now that I have both synth layers here, as we saw with the snare, I can pan these if I want. But since both of these oscillators within each synth are already spread, I don't know that that's really necessary. But I would like to add a bit of delay. So again, I like stereo delay. And might be nice to have this synced to the tempo. Let's make it wet. Okay. The pads on my push are very sensitive. Okay, that sounds nice. I think I want to add some saturation to Synth 2, because this is the one that has the modulation happening on the duty cycle, I believe. So nice. Okay. Let's get maybe a little bit of chorus on here as well. Here's our chorus mix. I like to have chorus going at a pretty slow rate. That's kind of cool. Okay, so I'm digging this sound, but there's one more thing that I want to do. Let's see. We got added some saturation to synth 1 as well. I think duophonic mode with this could be kind of cool. And let's make it so that maybe the first synth is synth 2. That could be kind of cool. I don't know. Let's see where we end up. I make you no promises, but here we go. So I need to fix this because it's too long, but I think it's actually kind of cool. Kind of works. It kind of works. And maybe this could stand to be an octave higher as well. But the point is, that's nice. Got a nice little beat, all made with Mariana from Moog. So I hope that you've gotten some useful information out of this. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Again, my name is Thavius Beck, and this is Mariana by Moog.